The red warning lights flashed across the bridge of the UES Thunderchild as Captain James Walker stared at the massive holographic display in front of him. His hands gripped the command chair's armrests tightly, but his face remained calm. The crew needed to see strength now more than ever. "Status report," he called out, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding before them. 1,000 enemy ships detected, sir," Lieutenant Tom Miller responded from the weapons station. "They're moving in a spiral pattern. Standard swarm attack formation." Walker nodded slowly. He had seen this before, but never at this scale. The alien ships looked like giant dark blue wasps, their biological hulls pulsing with an inner light. They moved together perfectly, as if they were all parts of a single massive creature. In a way, they were. The swarm's hive mind made sure of that. "What's the status of our quantum systems?" Walker asked, turning to look at Dr. Emma Reed, who was working frantically at her engineering station. "All systems are green, Captain," she replied without looking up. "The new upgrades are holding steady, but they're still untested in actual combat." Her fingers flew across the holographic controls as she made final adjustments to their experimental weapons. The Thunderchild was humanity's newest and most advanced warship. It was also now their last hope. The swarm had appeared 3 months ago, destroying every human colony in their path. The Outer Defense Fleet had tried to stop them, 50 of humanity's finest ships. Now only the Thunderchild remained. "Atlas, show me the enemy's predicted attack vectors," Walker commanded. The ship's AI responded immediately, filling the main display with glowing red lines that showed where the swarm would strike. "Their current formation suggests a 98% probability of a full encirclement attempt," Atlas reported, its voice calm and measured. "They will try to trap us in an energy net within the next 6 minutes." Walker allowed himself a small smile. The swarm was predictable. They always used the same tactics that had worked for them in the past. They had no reason to change. After all, why would you change something that had never failed? "Dr. Reed," Walker called out, "is the Ghost protocol ready?" "Yes, sir," she responded, finally looking up from her station. "But I should warn you, we've never tested it with the quantum drive at full power. The energy requirements are massive. If something goes wrong, we'll be just as dead as if we do nothing." Walker finished for her. "And at least this way, we'll go down fighting." The bridge crew nodded in agreement. They had all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be their last. The Thunderchild had been rushing back to Earth, hoping to warn them about the swarm's new tactics when they detected this massive fleet heading straight for their home world. They couldn't run. Even if they escaped, Earth would be defenseless. "Enemy ships are launching their first wave," Miller reported. 200 ships breaking formation to attack. Walker straightened in his chair. This was it, the moment that would decide if humanity's latest technology could stand against the swarm's overwhelming numbers. "All hands, battle stations," he ordered, his voice carrying throughout the ship. "Dr. Reed, begin Ghost Protocol initialization. Miller, charge all quantum weapon banks. Atlas, begin running combat predictions and prepare for emergency maneuvers." The Thunderchild hummed with power as its experimental systems came online. The quantum drive began to spin up, its energy readings climbing higher than they'd ever gone in testing. Warning messages flashed across several screens, but Dr. Reed quickly adjusted the power flow, keeping everything just barely within safe limits. "First wave will reach us in 30 seconds, Miller announced. "Ghost protocol at 70%, Dr. Reed added. "Ready in 15 seconds. Walker watched as the first wave of swarm ships approached. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, their biological hulls shifting colors as they prepared to attack. Energy began to build at their forward sections. The swarm's version of weapons, using concentrated plasma that could melt through standard ship armor in seconds. "Ghost protocol ready," Dr. Reed announced just as the enemy ships came into firing range. "Execute," Walker commanded. The Thunderchild's quantum drive activated, and reality seemed to bend around them. Suddenly, instead of one human warship, there were 5 identical vessels, each one seemingly as solid as the original. The holograms were perfect, created by bending quantum fields in ways that even most human scientists didn't fully understand. The swarm ships hesitated, something they had never been seen to do before. Their hive mind was confused, unable to determine which target was real. They fired a massive volley of plasma weapons, but 4/5 of their shots passed harmlessly through holographic duplicates. "Return fire," Walker ordered. "Full quantum barrage, concentrate on their lead ships." The Thunderchild's new weapons came to life. Beams of pure quantum energy lashed out, ignoring the normal laws of physics. Where traditional weapons would have been weakened by the distance, these beams struck with full force. The lead swarm ship's biological hulls had no defense against this new type of attack. 10 ships burst apart in the first volley, their remains spinning away into space. "Enemy is adjusting formation," Miller reported excitedly. "They're breaking into smaller groups. They don't know how to handle multiple targets." "Keep the pressure on," Walker commanded. "Atlas, predict their next move." "Dr. Reed, can we add more ghost ships?" "Negative, sir," Reed replied, her hands dancing across her controls. "We're at maximum power already, but I might be able to make our ghosts move independently, make them even harder to track." "Do it," Walker ordered. He watched as the holographic duplicates of the Thunderchild began to move in different patterns, each one firing seemingly real quantum weapons. The swarm's first wave was in complete disarray, having lost 30 ships in the first minute of battle. But Walker knew this was just the beginning. 900 more swarm ships were still out there, watching and learning. The real test would come when they adapted to this new threat. Humanity had surprised them this time, but the swarm's greatest strength was their ability to learn from their failures. "Sir," Atlas interrupted his thoughts, "I'm detecting energy buildup in the remaining first-wave ships. They appear to be preparing for a suicide attack." Walker's eyes narrowed. This was new. The swarm had never sacrificed ships before. Perhaps they weren't as predictable as he'd thought. "All power to forward shields," he commanded. "Prepare for impact." "Dr. Reed, can we jump?" "Quantum drive needs 30 seconds to cool down," she reported tensely. "We're stuck here." The remaining swarm ships from the first wave accelerated toward them, their hulls glowing brighter and brighter as they prepared to detonate themselves. The ghost ships wouldn't fool them this time. They were going to blanket the entire area with plasma explosions. Walker gripped his chair tighter. "Braced for impact," he ordered. "And prepare for emergency maneuvers. This battle's just getting started." The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The remaining ships from the swarm's first wave detonated themselves in a massive chain reaction, creating a wall of plasma that no normal ship could survive. The bridge crew of the Thunderchild held their breath as the energy wave approached. "Impact in 3 seconds," Atlas announced. "Shields at maximum capacity." Dr. Reed's hands flew across her control panel. "Rerouting all non-essential power to forward shields," she shouted. "Captain, this is going to be close." The wave hit them like a physical blow. The Thunderchild shuddered violently, and warning alarms screamed across every station. The ghost ships flickered and died as power was diverted to keeping the real ship intact. "Shield status," Walker demanded, holding onto his chair as the ship rocked. "Shields holding at 12%, Reed reported, her voice tight with concentration. "But we've lost the ghost protocol. The quantum projectors are fried. We'll need at least 10 minutes to get them back online." Walker nodded grimly. The swarm's suicide attack had been clever. They'd sacrificed their first wave to disable the Thunderchild's new technology. Now the remaining 900 ships were moving in, their formation shifting like a school of deadly fish. "Miller, what's their attack pattern?" Walker asked. "They're splitting into 3 groups, sir," Miller replied, studying his tactical display. 300 ships each. "They're trying to box us in." Walker thought quickly. Without the Ghost Protocol, they couldn't rely on confusion tactics anymore. But the Thunderchild had other tricks up its sleeve. "Atlas, show me the energy readings from the enemy ships," he ordered. The main display changed, showing heat and power signatures from the approaching swarm vessels. Walker studied the pattern, looking for something specific. "There," he said, pointing to a cluster of brighter signatures. "Those ships are directing the others. They're relay points for the hive mind." He turned to Dr. Reed. "Can we use that?" Reed's eyes lit up with understanding. "The quantum weapons," she said. "If we can disrupt their neural network." Her fingers began dancing across her controls again. "Captain, I have an idea. But it's risky. We need to get closer to those command ships." "How much closer?" Walker asked. "Point-blank range," Reed replied. "And we'll only get one shot at this." Walker looked at the tactical display again. Getting that close would mean flying straight into the heart of the swarm's formation. It would be like driving into a hurricane made of plasma weapons and alien ships. "Atlas, plot us a course," Walker ordered. "Lieutenant Miller, prepare all remaining weapons. We're going to show them why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The Thunderchild's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward into the approaching swarm. The alien ships immediately opened fire, filling space with deadly plasma bolts. "Evasive maneuvers," Walker commanded. "Miller, return fire only on ships directly in our path. Save our energy for the main strike." The massive human warship danced through space, performing maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. Atlas controlled their flight path with inhuman precision, finding gaps in the enemy fire that human pilots would have missed. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7, Reed reported as a plasma bolt got through their weakened shields. "Emergency containment holding. But we can't take much more of this." They were deep in the swarm formation now, enemy ships all around them. The Thunderchild's point defense systems worked overtime, shooting down suicide attackers and incoming projectiles. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each person focused entirely on their task. "Dr. Reed," Walker called out, "whatever you're planning, now would be a good time." "Almost ready," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The quantum weapon modifications are at 90%. But, sir, this is going to take everything we've got. We'll be running on emergency power afterward." A massive hit rocked the ship, throwing crew members against their restraints. "Shields failing," Miller shouted. "Multiple hull breaches. Now or never, Doctor," Walker said calmly. Reed took a deep breath and pressed the activation sequence. Quantum pulse deploying in 3, 2, 1. The Thunderchild's weapons didn't fire visible beams this time. Instead, the ship released a wave of quantum energy tuned to exactly the same frequency as the swarm's neural network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The nearest alien ships began to spin out of control, their biological components rejecting commands from their corrupted hive mind. The effect spread outward like ripples in a pond, each affected ship disrupting the neural connection of those around it. "It's working," Miller exclaimed. "Enemy ships are losing coordination. Their attack patterns are breaking down." Walker watched in amazement as the mighty swarm fleet began to fall into chaos. Ships crashed into each other, their perfect formation dissolving into random movement. Some vessels simply shut down, their biological systems unable to handle the conflicting signals. "How long will this last?" Walker asked. "Unknown," Reed replied, her eyes fixed on her readings. "We've never tried to disrupt their neural network before, but they're already trying to adapt. Look." She pointed to a group of ships at the edge of the affected area. They were changing color, their hulls shifting to block the quantum interference. The hive mind was learning, evolving in real time to counter the human attack. "Can we hit them again?" Walker asked. Reed shook her head. "Not for at least an hour. The quantum weapons are completely drained. We're running on auxiliary power only." Walker studied the tactical display. The swarm had lost nearly 200 ships to the quantum pulse, either through direct system failure or collisions. Another 100 were still spinning out of control, caught in the lingering effects of the disruption. But that left 600 ships still capable of fighting, and they were starting to regroup. "Atlas," Walker called out, "what are our options?" "Main weapons are offline," the AI reported. "Shields are at 3%. Hull integrity is compromised in 12 sections." However, the AI paused, something it rarely did. "I am detecting an interesting pattern in the enemy's recovery formation." Walker leaned forward. "Show me." A new display appeared, showing energy flows between the recovering swarm ships. They were forming a new neural network, but this one was different from their usual pattern. "They're afraid," Walker realized suddenly. "They're not just adapting. They're actively trying to protect themselves from another attack like that. They've never done that before." Reed looked up from her station, her eyes wide with understanding. "They've always relied on overwhelming force," she said. "They've never had to play defense before. This is completely new behavior for them." Walker smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. "Then let's show them why they're right to be afraid. Atlas, begin calculations for our next attack." "Dr. Reed, how quickly can you get our weapons back online?" "Working on it now, sir," she replied, her fingers already moving across her controls. "But whatever we do next, it has to count. We won't get another chance." Walker nodded, watching as the swarm ships continued to regroup. They had hurt the aliens badly, shown them that humanity wasn't helpless against their superior numbers. But the real test was still to come. The swarm was wounded but not defeated, and wounded predators were often the most dangerous. "All hands," Walker announced shipwide. "Prepare for round 3. The swarm is about to learn another lesson about humanity. We're our most dangerous when you think you have us beaten." The Thunderchill drifted through the debris field of destroyed swarm ships, its engines running silent. Emergency repair crews worked frantically throughout the vessel, trying to restore power to critical systems. On the bridge, the crew watched as the remaining swarm fleet regrouped, their biomechanical ships pulsing with an angry red glow. "Status report," Walker commanded, his voice hoarse from shouting orders during the last battle. "Not good, sir," Reed replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Main power is at 30%. Quantum weapons are slowly recharging, but we need at least 20 more minutes. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7 are contained, but we've lost our starboard armor plating. 623 enemy ships remaining," Miller added. "They're forming a new pattern I've never seen before." "Atlas, can you analyze it?" The AI took a moment to process the data. "The swarm appears to be adapting its entire combat doctrine," Atlas reported. "They are creating multiple layers of defense while maintaining offensive capabilities. This suggests they now view us as a serious threat." Walker nodded slowly. The swarm had never shown this level of tactical thinking before. They had always relied on overwhelming force and their hive-mind coordination. Now they were actually strategizing. "Sir," Miller suddenly called out. "Energy spike detected. They're doing something new." The remaining swarm ships began to pulse in unison, their biological hulls synchronizing in a way they'd never witnessed before. Streams of energy began to flow between the ships, creating a web of crackling power. "Dr. Reed, what are we looking at?" Walker asked, leaning forward in his chair. Reed's fingers flew across her console, analyzing the readings. They're combining their power systems," she said, her voice filled with both professional admiration and fear. "It's like they're turning their entire fleet into one massive weapon. The energy readings are off the charts." "How long until they can fire?" Walker demanded. "Unknown," Atlas replied. "This is completely new behavior, but based on the energy buildup rate, I estimate no more than 10 minutes. Walker looked at his tactical display. The Thunderchild was in no shape for another direct confrontation, but something about the swarm's new formation caught his eye. Their ships were now all connected by those energy streams, all part of one massive system. Dr. Reed, he said slowly, what would happen if we overloaded their energy network? Reed's eyes widened as she caught his meaning. The feedback would cascade through their entire formation, she said. But sir, we'd need to get incredibly close to inject our own energy signature into their network, and with our shields this weak. We don't need shields, Walker interrupted. We need speed. Atlas, plot me a course through the debris field. Lieutenant Miller, divert all remaining weapon power to the engines. Dr. Reed, prepare to channel everything we've got into one massive energy pulse. The crew worked quickly, understanding the desperate nature of their plan. The Thunderchild's engines hummed back to life as power was rerouted from other systems. Energy buildup in the swarm fleet reaching critical levels, Atlas warned. 7 minutes until projected weapon discharge. All hands, Walker announced ship-wide, secure for high-speed maneuvers. This is going to get rough. The Thunderchild shot forward, accelerating through the field of destroyed swarm ships. Walker's plan was insane, but it was exactly the kind of thinking that the highly logical swarm couldn't predict. They were using the debris of their own destroyed ships as cover, making it harder for the enemy to track them. 5 minutes until swarm weapon discharge, Atlas updated. They are attempting to track us through the debris field. The ship shuddered as it scraped past a piece of destroyed swarm vessel. Warning lights flashed across every console as their already damaged hull took more punishment. But Walker kept them on course, threading the massive warship through gaps that seemed impossibly small. 3 minutes. Atlas announced. Enemy energy network approaching maximum capacity. Now, Miller, Walker commanded. Full power to engines. The Thunderchild burst out of the debris field like a bullet from a gun, aimed directly at the heart of the swarm formation. The alien ships began to react, but their energy network made them slower, less maneuverable. They couldn't break formation without disrupting their weapon buildup. 2 minutes until discharge. Atlas reported. We will not survive a direct hit. We're not going to give them the chance, Walker said grimly. Dr. Reed, prepare the energy pulse. Time it exactly with my mark. The Thunderchild closed the distance rapidly, taking hits from the few swarm ships that could bring weapons to bear. Hull plates tore away, and fires broke out in multiple sections. But they kept going, dragging straight toward the center of the enemy formation. 1 minute, Atlas warned. Almost in position, Miller reported, his hand steady on the controls despite the chaos around them. The swarm's energy network was now clearly visible, a web of powerful forces holding their formation together. The alien ships were glowing bright enough to be painful to look at, their combined weapon nearly ready to fire. 30 seconds. Ready for energy pulse, Reed reported. Sir, this will burn out everything we have left. We'll be dead in space. Better than dead from their superweapon, Walker replied. Stand by. The Thunderchild plunged into the heart of the swarm formation, close enough to see individual details on the alien ship's hulls. Their massive weapon was about to discharge, the energy reaching critical levels. Now, Walker shouted. Reed slammed her hand down on the activation control. The Thunderchild released every bit of power it had left in one massive burst, not as a weapon, but as raw energy fed directly into the swarm's network. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. The energy web between the swarm ships turned from blue to red to white-hot. Their carefully controlled power network became a liability as the overload cascaded from ship to ship. Explosions began to chain through their formation as vessels began to rupture from the inside out. Clear the blast radius, Walker ordered. Emergency thrust. The Thunderchild's engines fired one last time, pushing them away from the disintegrating swarm fleet. Behind them, the chain reaction continued, each exploding ship adding its own energy to the overload, making it even worse for the survivors. Atlas, damage report, Walker called out as they limped away from the destruction. 347 enemy ships destroyed in the chain reaction. The AI reported. 192 severely damaged. Remaining vessels are retreating at maximum speed. There was a pause. Sir, the Thunderchild's power core is completely drained. Life support is on emergency backup only. We have approximately 6 hours of air remaining. Walker looked around at his exhausted bridge crew, then at the main display showing the retreating swarm ships. They had done it. They had not only survived, but had dealt the mighty swarm their first major defeat. The remaining ships were fleeing in terror, their supposedly perfect hive mind thrown into chaos by human ingenuity. Send out a distress signal, he ordered. Let Earth know what happened here. And let them know. He smiled tiredly. Let them know that humanity isn't the easy prey the swarm thought we were. As the emergency beacon began broadcasting their victory, the crew of the Thunderchild allowed themselves to relax slightly. They had 6 hours of air, but Earth ships would surely reach them before then. And they had just changed the course of the war. The swarm would think twice before attacking humans again. In the darkness of space, the Thunderchild floated amid the debris of its enemies, a testament to humanity's resourcefulness and determination. 1 ship against 1,000, and humanity had won. About that, Rogers said, turning to face him fully. Dr. Reed's quantum weapon modifications, the Ghost Protocol, the energy pulse tactic, we're already implementing these across the fleet. But more importantly, we're seeing something unprecedented in the swarm's behavior. Walker raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Rogers pulled out a tablet and showed him a series of tactical displays. The swarm is retreating on all fronts, not just from this sector, everywhere. They're pulling back to their own territory for the first time since we encountered them. And look at this. He zoomed in on an image of a swarm ship. Its normally smooth blue hull was now covered in what looked like armor plating. They're adapting, Walker said, understanding immediately, modifying their ships to defend against our tactics. Exactly, Rogers nodded. But here's the thing. They're not just copying our technology. They're innovating, creating new defenses we've never seen before. Your battle scared them so badly that they're actually evolving their entire species' approach to warfare. Walker thought about this. The swarm had always relied on their hive mind and overwhelming numbers. The idea that they could change, could learn to think individually and creatively, was both fascinating and terrifying. Sir, a young officer interrupted, saluting quickly. We're receiving a transmission. Well, you need to see this. They followed the officer to the Defiance Bridge, where a strange signal was being displayed on the main screen. It wasn't standard communication. It was a complex pattern of energy pulses, similar to the ones the swarm ships use to communicate with each other. They're trying to talk to us, Reed said excitedly, having joined them on the bridge. Not attack, not threaten. Actually communicate. She worked quickly at a console, analyzing the signal. It's like nothing we've seen from them before. The pattern suggests individual thought, not hive mind coordination. Can you decode it? Rogers asked. Reed nodded slowly. I think so. It's based on mathematical principles. Give me a few minutes. They watched as she worked, the pattern gradually resolving into recognizable data. Finally, she looked up, her face showing surprise. It's a message, she said. A simple one, but clear. We wish to understand. Walker and Rogers exchanged looks. This was unprecedented. The swarm had never attempted communication before. They want to learn from us, Walker realized. We showed them that their way of thinking, their entire way of being, could be defeated. Now they want to understand how we think, how we fight. This could be a trap, Rogers warned. The swarm has never shown interest in diplomacy before. No, Walker agreed, but they've never been defeated before either. We didn't just win a battle today. We proved that their entire worldview was flawed. That's bound to cause some serious soul-searching, even in a hive mind. Reed was still studying the signal. There's more, she said. They're sending tactical data, battle analyses, It's like they're offering to exchange information. Rogers stroked his chin thoughtfully. An exchange of military knowledge with an enemy that just tried to destroy us. That's a risky proposition. Maybe, Walker said, watching as more swarm signals appeared on the screen. But think about it. We've just forced the most rigid, inflexible species we've ever encountered to completely reevaluate their way of thinking. That's not just a military victory. It could be the beginning of something much more important. As they discussed the implications, more ships arrived from Earth, beginning the process of securing the battlefield and salvaging what they could from the destroyed swarm vessels. The Thunderchild floated among them, battered but undefeated, a symbol of humanity's ability to overcome impossible odds through creativity and determination. The war wasn't over, but it had changed fundamentally. The swarm had learned fear, and from fear had come wisdom. Now they sought understanding, and perhaps in that understanding, both species could find a way forward that didn't end in mutual destruction. 6 months had passed since the legendary battle, and Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Captain Walker stood at the window of the newly constructed peace station, watching as ships from both human and swarm fleets moved in careful, coordinated patterns around the massive structure. The station hung in space at the exact coordinates where the Thunderchild had made its desperate last stand. Still hard to believe, isn't it? Dr. Reed said, coming to stand beside him. Her uniform now bore the insignia of the Joint Species Research Division, an organization that hadn't existed half a year ago. Every day, Walker agreed, watching as a swarm ship docked at one of the station's specialized berths. The aliens had modified their vessels with mechanical components that allowed them to interface with human technology. It was just one of countless adaptations they had made since the battle. The memorial ceremony starts in an hour, Reed reminded him. Admiral Rogers wants you to say a few words. Walker nodded. The station itself was part memorial, part research center, and part diplomatic headquarters. Today marked the official signing of the first human swarm cooperation treaty, on the anniversary of the battle that had changed everything. How's the translation project coming? He asked as they walked through the station's curved corridors. Reed's face lit up with excitement. Fascinating progress. We've moved beyond simple mathematical concepts. The swarm representatives can now express complex ideas about their society. Did you know they don't even have a concept for individual achievement? Everything is measured by how it benefits the collective. That explains why our victory hit them so hard, Walker mused. One ship standing against their entire fleet went against everything they understood about how the universe works. They entered the station's central chamber, a vast space designed to accommodate both species comfortably. Human diplomats and officers mingled with swarm representatives, strange, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms and compound eyes that moved independently of each other. The aliens still communicated primarily through their neural network, but they had developed mechanical translators that converted their thoughts into spoken human languages. Admiral Rogers approached them, looking much less stressed than the last time Walker had seen him. "There you are," he said, "our guests of honor. The swarm delegates have been asking for you specifically, Captain." Walker raised an eyebrow. "Me? I'm the one who nearly wiped out their fleet." "Exactly," Rogers replied with a smile. "You're something of a celebrity among them. They've even created a new word in their language that translates roughly to the one who showed the way through defeat. They consider you a teacher." Reed leaned forward, always the scientist. "You changed your entire neural network structure based on one battle." "Yes," the translator confirmed. "Old network, all think same. New network, some think different. Bring new ideas to collective. Like your ship crew, different skills, different thoughts, stronger together." Walker realized what the alien was saying. "You've restructured your entire society based on what you learned from us. You're encouraging individual thinking within your collective." "Dangerous," the swarm commander acknowledged. "Difficult, but necessary for survival. Your ship showed weakness in our way." Rogers looked impressed. and it only took you 6 months to implement these changes across your entire species. That would be impossible for humans. Different biology, different society, the translator explained. But slow for us. Much resistance from old patterns. Many believe defeat was error, not lesson. Your word, civil war. First, in swarm history, change side 1. This was new information for the humans present. They hadn't realized that the swarm had gone through internal conflict during the months of silence after the battle. The treaty signing proceeded smoothly after that revelation. Both sides agreed to establish permanent communication channels, exchange technological innovations with peaceful applications, and create joint defense protocols against potential new threats to either species. As the ceremony concluded, Walker found himself back at the observation window, looking out at the stars. Reed joined him again, holding 2 glasses of champagne. 2 impossible victories, she said, handing him one. And unexpected consequences, he added, clinking his glass against hers. They watched as swarm and human ships conducted joint maneuvers in the space around the station. The aliens had abandoned their old attack patterns completely, instead adopting hybrid formations that combined their natural coordination with human-inspired tactical flexibility. You know what the most remarkable thing is, Reed said after a moment. 6 months ago, we destroyed half their fleet and sent them running in terror. Now they're implementing our organizational strategies across their entire civilization. Can you imagine if humans were that adaptable? Walker smiled. We adapt in our own way. Look at us now, working alongside the enemy that nearly wiped us out. That takes a special kind of adaptability. Beyond the station, Earth gleamed like a blue jewel. The planet had been transformed by the events of the past 6 months. Defense technology had advanced rapidly as engineers studied and improved upon the Thunderchild's experimental systems. The economy was booming as swarm biological technology was carefully integrated into human manufacturing. And for the first time in decades, there was a sense of unified purpose among the nations of Earth. The battle had started with mass panic, the swarm fleeing in terror from one human ship's impossible victory. But that panic had transformed into something else entirely. Not surrender, not resentment, but growth. 2 entirely different forms of intelligence learning from each other, becoming stronger through the exchange. The Thunderchild is almost repaired, Reed mentioned. They're turning her into a diplomatic vessel. First mission launches next month. A human swarm expedition to explore beyond both our territories. They want you to command it. Walker looked at her, surprised. Me? I'm a warship captain, not a diplomat. Reed laughed. You're the human who taught the swarm to think differently. I can't think of anyone better qualified to lead us into whatever comes next. As they stood there, watching the stars, Walker thought about how one desperate battle had changed the course of 2 civilizations. Humanity had proven its worth against overwhelming odds, and in doing so, had given an entire alien species a new way of thinking. Not bad for one day's work.